Welcome to Relaxing Historian Journey channel. Tonight we travel across a vast and silent world where winter stretches without mercy, and where survival depends not on strength alone, but on quiet knowledge passed through generations. You find yourself standing beneath an endless sky, the land around you frozen empty, and yet somehow alive with unseen movement. How did people endure here where the cold does not simply visit, but settles in like an uninvited ruler? What secrets allowed nomadic cultures to thrive in a place where even standing still for too long could be dangerous? So before you settle into the story, take a second to like the video and hit subscribe. And if you feel like sharing, let me know where you are listening from and what time it is there. Now dim the lights. You stand at the edge of the steppe, though there is no real edge to speak of. The land stretches outward in every direction, a soft rise and fall of frozen grass beneath a thin blanket of snow. The air feels sharp against your face, not painfully so, but firm and insistent, as if reminding you that it has the final say in all things here. You take a slow breath. The cold settles into your lungs, dry and clean, carrying almost no scent at all. There is no forest nearby, no hint of damp soil or leaf decay, only the faint trace of animals. Somewhere beyond your sight. Even sound behaves differently. The wind moves in long, low tones, sweeping across the open land without interruption, creating a steady whisper that never quite fades. It feels endless. You shift your weight slightly, your boots pressing into the crust of snow beneath you. The surface gives just enough to remind you that the ground is not solid in the way it first appears. Beneath a thin layer of frost lies a world of grass roots and soil, all held in a temporary stillness. A commonly accepted observation among historians is that nomadic life on the steppe required constant movement even in winter, because resources were never concentrated in one place. You begin to understand that stillness, which might feel comforting at first, is rarely safe here. The land offers very little to those who linger too long. You glance toward the horizon. It does not change. No trees break the line. No hills rise sharply enough to offer shelter. The sky meets the earth in a clean, uninterrupted curve, making distance difficult to judge. What looks close may take hours to reach. What seems far might already be within walking distance. Your sense of scale begins to shift, adjusting slowly to this open world. You pull your coat tighter. The fabric presses against your body, holding what little warmth you have generated. The cold does not rush in all at once. Instead, it works patiently, finding small openings, slipping through seams, brushing against your wrists and neck with quiet persistence. It is not aggressive, it is constant. You notice how your body responds. Your movements become more deliberate, less wasteful. Each step feels measured, each breath controlled. There is a subtle awareness growing within you, a recognition that energy is something to be guarded carefully. In some accounts from travelers who crossed these lands centuries ago, there are descriptions of how the cold could dull the senses without warning, making people feel calm just before they became dangerously weak. It is a detail that feels almost unsettling in its simplicity. The danger here is not always loud or dramatic. Often it arrives quietly. You take another breath. This time you pay closer attention. The air feels thinner than you expected, not because there is less of it, but because it carries so little moisture. Your lips begin to dry, your skin tightening slightly as the wind passes over it again and again. A curious detail sometimes noted in studies of steppe cultures is that many nomads could identify changes in weather simply by how the air felt on their skin, detecting shifts long before clouds or snow made them visible. You begin to see how such awareness would become second nature in a place like this. You lift your gaze toward the sky. The light is pale, almost fragile, as if it could fade at any moment. The sun sits low even during the day, casting long shadows that stretch across the snow like faint lines drawn by an unseen hand. There is warmth in the light, but not enough to challenge the cold. You pause. There is a stillness here that feels complete, yet it is not empty. Somewhere far away you catch the faint movement of animals. Dark shapes shift slowly against the pale ground, their presence subtle but steady. They move with purpose, never rushing, never wasting effort. You watch them for a moment. Then you understand. Life here does not resist the environment. It adapts to it. Every movement, every pause, every decision is shaped by the conditions around it. Nothing is accidental, nothing is careless. Some researchers have debated whether early nomadic groups developed these behaviors gradually over generations, or if survival demanded rapid adaptation within a single lifetime. The truth is not entirely clear. What is certain is that those who failed to adjust did not remain long enough to pass on their knowledge. You shift again, feeling the cold reach deeper into your boots. The ground beneath you holds its own chill, seeping upward with a quiet determination. It is not enough to stand and observe forever. Already you can sense that time matters here. Even a short pause begins to cost you warmth. You take a step forward. The sound is soft, almost muted. The snow absorbing much of the impact. You listen closely, noticing how even small noises feel amplified in this open space. There are no walls to contain them, no trees to break their path. Sound travels, then fades into the distance without echo. You continue walking. Your pace settles into a rhythm steady and controlled. Too fast and you risk sweating, which would cool your body quickly. Too slow and the cold begins to take hold. Balance becomes your quiet companion, guiding each movement without needing to be spoken. You feel it now, the beginning of understanding. This land does not offer comfort in the way you might expect. Instead, it offers clarity. It teaches you what matters and removes what does not. Warmth, movement, awareness, and timing. These are not luxuries, they are necessities. You glance once more across the horizon. It still looks the same, yet something within you has changed. The step no longer feels empty. It feels precise, structured in ways that are not immediately visible. There is a rhythm here, a pattern that reveals itself slowly only to those who take the time to notice. You draw another breath, calm, measured. The wind continues its steady motion, brushing against you with quiet persistence. It does not rush. It does not stop. It simply continues as it always has, shaping the land and everything that lives upon it. You walk on, you continue forward your steps, settling into a quiet rhythm that feels almost instinctive now. The ground beneath you remains firm but uneven, the thin snow shifting in subtle ways with each step. The wind has not changed yet. Something about it feels different, as if your awareness has sharpened just enough to notice its patterns. You lift your head slightly. The sky stretches wide above you, pale and distant, carrying a faint gradient of colour that shifts almost too slowly to see. At first glance it seems empty, but as you look longer you begin to notice variations. The light is not uniform, it never is. You slow your pace. The air brushes across your face and you feel a slight difference in its direction. It is not strong enough to push you, but it carries intention. The wind moves with purpose here, shaped by distant pressures and unseen changes across the land. A widely accepted understanding among historians is that nomadic groups relied heavily on environmental cues to anticipate weather, often hours or even days before visible signs appeared. You begin to sense how vital that skill would be. On the open steppe, there are no walls to shield you from what is coming. You pause briefly. The sky holds your attention. The pale blue has deepened slightly toward the horizon, and there is a thin veil of cloud forming far in the distance. It is not dramatic, it is barely noticeable. Yet something about its shape feels deliberate, as if it is gathering itself. You narrow your eyes. The light shifts again. Not darker, not brighter, but softer. The edges of things seem less defined, the contrast fading in a way that feels almost gentle. It would be easy to ignore. But you do not. In accounts from travellers and oral traditions alike, there are descriptions of how experienced nomads could read the sky with remarkable accuracy, noticing the thickness of clouds, the angle of light, and even the colour of the horizon. These small details often carried meaning far greater than they appeared. You take a slow breath. The air feels slightly heavier now. Still dry, still cold, but with a faint change that is difficult to describe. It presses against your skin differently, as if carrying more weight within it. You do not need to understand it fully to recognize that it matters. You resume walking, Your steps remain steady, but your attention has shifted upward. The land still stretches endlessly before you, yet now it feels connected to the sky above. The two are not separate. They move together, influencing one another in ways that are not immediately obvious. You glance toward the horizon again. The distant clouds have spread thin and uneven like strands of wool pulled across the sky. Their movement is slow, almost imperceptible, yet their presence changes the feeling of the entire landscape. It feels quieter, not in sound but in expectation. You notice the wind again. It has shifted slightly, coming from a different angle, brushing across your cheek rather than directly into your face. It carries a faint sharpness, a hint of something colder behind it, as if it has travelled from a place where the temperature has already dropped further. You adjust your posture. Your body responds before your thoughts fully form. Your shoulders lift slightly. Your chin lowers, protecting your face from the direct flow of air. These movements feel natural even though you have not consciously decided to make them. A lesser-known detail in some anthropological studies suggests that many nomadic communities developed an almost intuitive relationship with the environment where repeated exposure allowed the body to react to subtle changes without deliberate thought. You begin to feel that process starting within you. You take another step, then another. The rhythm continues, but now it carries a different awareness. You're no longer just moving across the land, you are observing it, reading it, allowing it to guide your choices in quiet ways. You look up once more. The sun remains low, its light filtered through the thin clouds, creating a soft glow that spreads evenly across the sky. There are no sharp shadows now. Everything feels muted, as if the world has been gently covered by a thin layer of frost in the air itself. You pause again. This time you listen. The wind has changed in sound as well as direction. It carries a slightly higher tone, a faint whistle that was not present before. It moves across the open land without obstruction, yet its voice has shifted, revealing something about the distance it has travelled. You feel it, a quiet warning. Some scholars have long debated how early nomads interpreted these signals, whether their understanding was purely practical or also shaped by cultural beliefs about the sky and spirits. The exact balance remains uncertain, but the result was the same. They paid attention. You draw your coat closer. The temperature has not dropped sharply yet. There is a subtle decline that you can feel along your fingers and face. It is gradual, almost polite, but it continues without pause. You do not wait. You begin to adjust your pace, not faster, but more purposeful. There is a direction forming in your mind guided by what you have observed rather than what you can see clearly ahead. The land offers no obvious shelter, but the sky has already spoken. You glance to your side, scanning the horizon for any variation in the terrain. A slight dip, a rise, even a cluster of low grass could offer some advantage. On the steppe, even the smallest change in elevation can alter how the wind moves. You notice something. Far ahead, barely visible, the ground seems to shift slightly. It is not a hill, not exactly, but a gentle fold in the land. The kind of place where wind might pass over rather than directly through. You focus on it. It becomes your destination. You continue walking, your steps steady, your breathing controlled. The cold remains, but it no longer feels like an unknown force. It is something you are beginning to understand piece by piece. You feel a quiet sense of alignment. Not comfort, but clarity. The sky above you continues its slow transformation, the clouds spreading the light, softening further. There is no urgency in its movement, yet everything about it suggests that change is coming. You walk toward the subtle rise in the land. The wind follows. The sky watches, and you begin to listen more closely than ever before. You continue towards the gentle rise in the land, your steps careful and even guided by the quiet awareness that has begun to settle within you. The sky remains muted above its light, diffused through a thin layer of cloud that seems to grow denser with each passing moment. The wind follows its steady path. It brushes across your clothing, slipping into the smallest openings, reminding you that exposure is not a single event, but a gradual process. You begin to understand that choosing where to stop is not a simple decision. It is one of the most important choices you will make. You slow your pace. The ground beneath you shifts slightly as you approach the low fold in the land. The surface feels firmer here, less exposed to the direct force of the wind. The snow has gathered in thin drifts shaped by movement rather than accumulation. You pause. Your eyes scan the area not quickly but with intention. There is no obvious shelter, no structure waiting to welcome you. But there are differences, subtle ones. The wind is softer here. Not absent, just less insistent. A widely accepted historical insight suggests that nomadic groups often selected camp locations based on small variations in terrain, favouring places where the land itself could interrupt or redirect the wind. You begin to recognise how even a shallow depression can offer protection that is not immediately visible. You take a few steps forward, then stop again. You turn slightly, facing different directions, allowing the wind to touch your face from each angle. It is a simple act, yet it reveals something important. The direction of the strongest current, the way it bends around the rise, the areas where it weakens. You feel it clearly now. This place offers a small advantage. You lower your gaze to the ground. The snow here is different. It has been shaped into gentle patterns, small ridges and dips that suggest repeated movement of air. In some spots, the surface is smooth, almost polished by the wind. In others, it is rough, broken into uneven textures. You crouch slightly. Your hand reaches down, pressing lightly against the snow. It resists at first, then gives way just enough to reveal the layer beneath. The cold travels quickly through your glove, sharp but manageable. You release it. The surface closes again as if nothing had disturbed it. A lesser-known observation from Steppe studies notes that experienced nomads could judge the stability of snow and ground by the touch alone, determining whether it would hold weight or collapse under pressure. It is a quiet skill, one that comes from repetition rather than instruction. You rise slowly. Your eyes move across the horizon once more. The sky has dimmed slightly, the light thinning as the clouds continue to spread. The sense of time begins to shift. It is difficult to tell how long you have been walking, how far you have come. The land does not measure itself in clear units. It simply continues. You draw your coat tighter again. The cold has deepened, not dramatically, but enough that you feel it more consistently along your arms and legs. It no longer comes in brief touches, it stays. You take a slow breath, then another. Your breathing remains steady, but you notice how important it feels to keep it that way. Any sudden exertion, any unnecessary movement could disrupt the balance you're trying to maintain. You step a little further into the fold. The difference becomes clearer. The wind passes above you slightly, its force reduced by the shape of the land. It is not complete protection, but it is enough to matter. You stand still for a moment. This could be a place to stop. You consider it. In various historical accounts, there is mention of how nomadic groups rarely chose campsites based on comfort alone, but on a careful balance of factors. Wind direction, ground stability, proximity to animals, and even the likelihood of future movement all played a role. No single element was enough on its own. You begin to weigh these factors, even if only instinctively. The ground here is firm. The wind is reduced. The horizon remains visible in all directions, allowing you to monitor any movement around you. There are no obstacles, no hidden dangers nearby. But there is also exposure. If the weather worsens, this shallow fold may not be enough. You lift your gaze to the sky again. The clouds have thickened slightly, their edges blending together, forming up a more continuous layer. The light continues to soften, losing some of its clarity. You feel a quiet tension, not fear. Awareness. Some scholars have debated whether nomadic decision-making in such environments was driven more by immediate observation or by inherited patterns of behaviour. It is difficult to separate the two. What feels like instinct is often built upon generations of experience. You take a step back, then forward again, testing. The ground holds. The wind remains manageable. You begin to understand that waiting for perfect conditions is not an option here. There is only the best available choice at any given moment. You move a few steps to one side. The wind increases slightly. You move back. It lessens again. The difference is subtle yet consistent. You nod to yourself almost without realizing it. This is the place. You shift your stance, positioning yourself so that the strongest current of wind passes behind you rather than directly against you. It is a small adjustment, but it changes how the cold reaches you. You feel it immediately. Less direct, less sharp, You take another breath. The air remains cold, but your body begins to settle into its rhythm again. The decision has been made not with certainty, but with careful consideration. You glance once more across the open steppe. Replica remains vast, unchanging, and yet within it you have found a small measure of control. You stand quietly in the shallow fold of land, aware that this choice, like all others here, is temporary. The steppe does not offer permanence. It offers moments, and you have chosen this one. You remain within the shallow fold of land, letting your body settle into the decision you have made. The wind continues to pass above and around you, its force softened just enough to make a difference. It does not stop, it never does, but here it feels manageable. You shift your stance. The cold presses in steadily. No longer a distant sensation, but a constant presence along your skin and through your clothing. You understand now that choosing where to stop is only the beginning. The next task is more delicate. You need to hold warmth. You glance around. There are no walls to build and no heavy materials waiting to be stacked into place. The steppe offers very little in the way of solid resources. What it does offer is knowledge. Quiet techniques shaped by the necessity and refined over time. You lower yourself slowly. The ground feels firm beneath you, though the cold rises from it with quiet persistence. You do not sit directly at first. Instead, you test the surface with your hand, again pressing gently, feeling for any hidden softness or instability. It holds. You settle down carefully, keeping your movements controlled. Sudden actions would only waste energy, and energy here is as valuable as warmth itself. A well-documented understanding in steppe archaeology suggests that nomadic groups relied on portable dwellings often constructed from felt and flexible wooden frames which could be assembled and disassembled quickly. These structures, known in many regions as yurts, were not just shelters. They were carefully designed systems for conserving heat. You picture it. Layers of thick felt pressed from animal wool wrapped tightly around a circular frame. The material traps air, holding warmth inside while resisting the wind outside. The shape itself matters. Rounded walls allow the wind to move around the structure rather than strike it directly. You do not have such a structure here, but you begin to understand its principles. You draw your legs closer to your body. It is a simple adjustment, yet it reduces the surface area exposed to the cold. Your arms follow, folding inward, keeping warmth closer to your core. The position feels natural, almost instinctive. You hold it. Your breathing slows. The air enters your lungs in steady, measured cycles, each breath controlled to avoid unnecessary loss of heat. You notice how even small changes in breathing can affect how your body feels. A lesser-known detail from ethnographic studies notes that some nomadic groups use their own bodies as part of their insulation strategy, huddling together or adjusting posture to minimize heat loss. It is not always about building something external. Sometimes the structure begins with you. You adjust your coat, the fabric layers shift slightly, creating small pockets of air between them. These pockets matter. They act as barriers, slowing the movement of cold toward your skin. You smooth the edges, ensuring there are no gaps where the wind can slip through easily. You feel the difference. Subtle, but real. You glance at the ground beside you. The snow has gathered in thin patches shaped by the wind into uneven forms. You reach out and pull a small amount closer, packing it gently against the side of your legs. It seems counterintuitive at first, using something so cold to protect against the cold, but it works. The packed snow forms a barrier blocking direct airflow. It does not warm you, but it reduces the rate at which heat escapes. It is a quiet kind of protection. You continue. A small ridge forms along your side, barely noticeable yet effective. You repeat the motion on the other side, creating a shallow enclosure around your lower body. You pause. Your hands feel the cold more sharply now, but the rest of your body begins to stabilize. The wind no longer reaches you as directly. The ground still pulls warmth away, but more slowly. An interesting observation found in some field research suggests that nomads often used available materials in unexpected ways, including snow dung and packed earth to reinforce their shelters. These materials were not ideal, but they were reliable. You understand that now. You lean slightly forward. Your head lowers, reducing exposure while your back faces the direction of the strongest wind. Your posture changes again, small adjustments aligning with the conditions around you. You hold still. The world feels quieter, not because the wind has stopped, but because you've adapted to it. The sound becomes part of the background, steady and continuous, no longer demanding your full attention. You take a slow breath. The air remains cold, yet it feels less intrusive. Your body has begun to find its balance, conserving warmth where it can, releasing it only when necessary. You close your eyes briefly, just for a moment. You listen. The wind moves across the land, its tone steady, its presence constant. Beneath it there is a faint stillness, a sense that the steppe is not empty but resting. Some historians have long questioned how quickly individuals could learn these survival techniques without prior experience, or whether they required years of immersion within a nomadic community. The answer is not entirely clear. What is evident is that the principles themselves are simple, even if mastering them takes time. You open your eyes again. The sky has dimmed further, the light thinning, as the cloud cover becomes more complete. The horizon remains visible, but softer, less defined than before. You remain where you are. Your body holds its position, conserving energy, maintaining warmth. There is no rush. Movement now would serve little purpose. You feel it, a quiet sense of stability, not comfort, but control. You glance once more across the open land. The steppe continues its endless stretch, unchanged and unmoved by your presence. Yet within this vast space you have created a small pocket of resistance, a place where the cold is slowed, where the wind is softened, where warmth, though fragile, can be held. You draw another breath, steady, measured, and you remain. You remain settled within your shallower enclosure, your posture steady, your breath even. The wind continues its long passage across the steppe, but its reach has softened around you. The small barrier you shaped holds quiet and effective, giving you just enough advantage to think about what comes next. Warmth for the moment is contained, but it will not last on its own. You open your eyes fully and look across the ground nearby. The land appears empty at first glance, a wide spread of pale snow and faint textures beneath it. There are no trees, no fallen branches waiting to be gathered. The steppe offers no obvious fuel. You shift your hands slowly. They feel colder now, the earlier work having drawn heat away from your fingers. You flex them gently, restoring movement, careful not to lose control of your breath. You need fire. The thought arrives quietly, not as urgency, but as necessity. Without it, your warmth depends only on your body and your clothing. With it, you gain something more stable, more reliable. Yet here, fire is not simple. A well-established understanding in historical research shows that nomadic groups on the open steppe often relied on animal dung as their primary fuel source, especially in regions where wood was scarce or entirely absent. It is not an ideal material, but it burns steadily and produces enough heat to sustain life. You glance outward again. At first, the ground reveals nothing new, but as you narrow your focus, scanning more carefully, you begin to notice small variations in the surface. Slight disruptions in the snow, faint shapes that break the otherwise smooth pattern. You lean forward slightly, your eyes adjust. There, a darker patch partially covered, barely visible unless you're looking for it. You rise slowly, keeping your movements controlled, and step toward it. The snow shifts beneath your feet. You reach down and brush the surface aside. Beneath it you find a flattened piece of dried dung, hardened by time and cold. It feels light in your hand, almost weightless, yet you know its value. You hold it for a moment, then place it carefully beside your shelter. You continue searching. Another piece lies a short distance away, then another. Each one requires attention to find patience to uncover. None are obvious. None are easy. A curious detail noted in some accounts suggests that experienced nomads could identify these fuel sources even when partially buried, recognizing patterns in the snow that indicated what lay beneath. It is a skill that comes from familiarity, from knowing how the land changes around small objects. You begin to see those patterns now, subtle depressions, slight discolorations. You move slowly, gathering what you can, never straying too far from your chosen spot. Each piece you collect adds to a small pile, modest but meaningful. You return to your place. The wind greets you again, though less directly than before. You lower yourself carefully, arranging the pieces of fuel in front of you. Now comes the harder part. Fire needs more than fuel. It needs a beginning. You reach into your clothing, feeling for what you carry. Something small, something dry, something that can catch a spark. In many traditional nomadic practices, materials such as dried grass, wool fibers, or scraped bark were used to start a flame. You check your surroundings. There is little to work with, but not nothing. Beneath the snow, you find fragments of dry grass preserved by the cold, protected from moisture. You gather them gently, forming a small bundle. You place it at the center. The dung pieces surround it, arranged loosely, allowing air to pass through. You remember that fire needs space to breathe. Too tight and it suffocates, too open and it fails to build. You adjust carefully. Each movement is slow, deliberate, guided by the quiet understanding that mistakes here carry consequences. You take a breath, then another. Your hands move with intention as you prepare to strike a spark. The cold has made them less responsive, but you maintain control, focusing on precision rather than speed. A small motion, a brief contact, then a spark. It is faint, almost nothing, but it is enough. The dry fibers catch slowly, a thin thread of smoke rising first, followed by a small, fragile glow. You lean closer, shielding it with your body, protecting it from the wind. You breathe gently, not too much, just enough. The glow strengthens. The flame appears small and uncertain, flickering against the cold air. You hold your position, feeding it carefully, adding just enough material to sustain it without overwhelming it. It grows. Slowly, the dung begins to catch its surface, darkening, then glowing, then producing a steady heat that spreads outward. The smell is distinct, earthy and dry, not unpleasant, but unfamiliar. You feel it. Warmth, not strong, but real. You extend your hands toward it, keeping a careful distance. The heat reaches your skin soft at first, then more noticeable. It does not chase away the cold entirely, but it creates a balance, a place of contrast. Some researchers have explored how the ability to maintain fire in such environments shape not only survival, but also social and cultural practices among nomadic groups. Fire was not just a tool, it was a center point, a source of stability in a shifting world. You understand that now. You sit with it. The flame flickers gently, its movement steady despite the surrounding wind. The small shelter you created helps the barrier of snow, reducing the airflow just enough to protect the fire. You adjust your position slightly, closer. Your body absorbs the warmth holding it, allowing it to spread gradually through your limbs. Your breathing slows further, your muscles relaxing just enough to conserve energy. You watch the flame. It moves with quiet persistence, consuming the fuel, slowly releasing heat in a steady rhythm. It does not rush, it does not waste. You take another breath. The air carries a new scent, now faint and grounding, mixing with the cold to create something more balanced. The world feels less harsh, not because it has changed, but because you have found a way to meet it. You remain there, hands extended, body steady, mind clear. The fire continues. You sit beside the small fire, your hand slowly warming, your breath steady and quiet. The flame moves with a calm rhythm, neither strong nor weak, simply present. It does not conquer the cold, it balances it. You feel the difference. The warmth reaches your fingers first, then your palms, then slowly into your wrists. It spreads in a measured way, as if your body is learning how to accept it again without losing it too quickly. You shift slightly. Your clothing presses closer to your skin, holding the heat where it can. You begin to notice how each layer plays a role, not just as protection, but as a system that works together with your body. You adjust your sleeve. The fabric feels thick, slightly rough yet dependable. It traps small pockets of air between layers, and those pockets hold warmth in place. You realize that it is not the material alone that matters, but how it is worn. A widely recognized principle in studies of steppe nomads is that clothing was designed in layers often made from wool, felt, fur and leather, each material serving a specific purpose. Together they formed a barrier that protected against wind, retained heat, and allowed moisture to escape. You glance down at yourself. You begin to understand the arrangement. The inner layers sit close to the body, holding warmth. The outer layers resist the wind, preventing it from carrying that warmth away. Between them, air rests quietly, acting as an invisible shield. You tighten your collar, a small adjustment, but it matters. The wind no longer slips easily along your neck. The heat that rises from your body remains contained, circulating rather than escaping. You bring your hands closer to the fire again. Not too close. Just enough! Ah! The warmth reaches them once more, restoring feeling that had begun to fade. You flex your fingers, slowly testing their movement, ensuring that they remain responsive. A subtle observation found in ethnographic accounts suggests that nomadic clothing was often adapted throughout the day, adjusted in response to changes in temperature, activity, and weather. It was not static, it was constantly refined. You begin to do the same. You shift the edge of your coat, allowing a small opening near your chest. The heat from the fire reaches inside, warming the air trapped beneath your layers. You hold it there briefly, then close it again, sealing that warmth in place. You feel it, a quiet improvement. You lean back slightly. Your posture changes, allowing your back to face the wind while your front remains oriented toward the fire. This positioning reduces the amount of cold air that reaches your core. You settle into it. Comfort is not the goal, balance is. You notice your legs. They remain close together, reducing exposure, conserving heat. You resist the urge to stretch them out. It would feel better for a moment, but it would cost you warmth. You remain still. The fire continues its steady burn, the fuel breaking down slowly, releasing heat in a consistent flow. The smell remains faint, earthy, grounding you in the present moment. A curious detail noted by some researchers is that certain nomadic groups treated clothing almost as an extension of the body itself, something that required attention, care, and constant awareness. It was not simply worn, it was managed. You adjust your gloves. They feel stiff from the cold, yet they hold their shape, protecting your hands from direct exposure. You rub them together gently, generating a small amount of friction, adding to the warmth provided by the fire. You breathe slowly. The air enters cold but controlled and leaves with a slight trace of warmth. You begin to understand how breathing itself can influence how your body holds heat. You avoid quick breaths. You avoid unnecessary movement. Everything becomes deliberate. There is a quiet rhythm forming. You glance at the horizon. The sky has dimmed further, the light now softer, more diffuse, as if the day is slowly withdrawing. The clouds remain stretching across the sky in a continuous layer. You feel the temperature shift again, slight, but present. You respond. You pull your coat tighter once more, reducing any openings, reinforcing the barrier between your body and the outside air. The warmth you have gathered remains within, circulating slowly. You notice how your awareness has changed. Earlier, the cold felt like something external, something you reacted to. Now it feels like part of a system, something you manage through small, consistent actions. Some historians have questioned how much of this knowledge was taught directly, and how much was learned through experience alone. The distinction is difficult to define. In environments like this, learning often happens through necessity. You look down at your clothing again. Each layer has a purpose. Each adjustment matters. You shift your weight slightly. The ground beneath you remains firm, the cold rising from it, but less sharply now. The fire helps, your clothing helps, your posture helps. None of these alone would be enough. Together they are. You extend your hands once more toward the flame. The warmth meets them. Steady, reliable. You hold them there, feeling the heat settle into your skin, into your muscles, into your awareness. You do not rush to pull away, you do not linger too long. You find the balance. The wind continues its quiet movement around you. The sky remains muted above, the land stretches endlessly beyond your sight. And within this vast, unforgiving space, you sit with your fire, your clothing, your breath, holding warmth. You remain seated beside the low, steady fire, your body gradually settling into a rhythm that feels sustainable. The warmth reaches you in slow waves, never overwhelming, yet enough to hold back the deeper cold. Your breathing has become quieter, your movements more precise. You notice the land again. The steppe does not feel empty anymore. It feels inhabited not by structures or boundaries, but by movement that is easy to miss unless you look carefully. Your gaze drifts outward, scanning the distance with a patience that did not exist before. There, A subtle shift. Dark shapes against the pale ground moving with a steady measured pace. They are far enough away to appear almost still, yet something about their motion is unmistakable. You focus. They are animals, not a scattered presence, but a group moving together across the open land. Their pace is calm, unhurried, each step aligned with the next. There is no wasted energy in their movement. You watch them quietly. In many historical accounts, nomadic life on the steppe is described as deeply interconnected with herds of animals, not only as a food source, but as a central part of survival. Livestock provided warmth, transport materials, and even guidance through the landscape. You begin to understand that connection. The animals move with knowledge of the land, their paths shaped by generations of instinct. They know where to find food beneath the snow, where the ground is stable, where the wind is less severe. You rise slowly. Your body resists at first, stiff from stillness, but it responds with a quiet readiness. You take a few steps forward, your attention fixed on the distant movement. The fire remains behind you, still burning. You do not go far. You simply observe. The animals draw slightly closer, though still distant. Their forms become clearer. Thick coats compact, bodies' heads lowered slightly as they move against the wind. They are built for this environment in ways that feel almost effortless. A lesser-known observation from steppe anthropology notes that animals often served as early indicators of environmental change, with their behavior signaling shifts in weather or conditions before humans could detect them. You watch carefully now, not just where they are, but how they move. They do not rush. They do not scatter. They remain together. You notice the spacing between them, the way they maintain distance without drifting apart. It is not random. It is structured, a pattern that allows them to move efficiently while remaining connected. You feel a quiet realization. Survival here is not solitary. Even in stillness, even in distance, there is a form of cooperation that exists beyond words. You glance back toward your fire. It continues to burn, a small, steady presence against the vastness. You return to it, lowering yourself once more into your place within the shallow fold of land. The warmth greets you again. You extend your hands. Your fingers respond more easily now, the stiffness easing as circulation returns. You flex them slowly, maintaining control. You think about the animals. Their presence lingers in your mind, not as a distant curiosity, but as a reminder. They are not separate from this environment. They are part of it in a way that is both practical and essential. Some scholars have long considered whether nomadic societies shape their lifestyles around their herds, or whether the relationship evolved naturally over time as both adapted to the same conditions. The distinction remains uncertain, but the connection is undeniable. You look down at the ground beside you. Small traces are visible now that you know how to look. Faint impressions in the snow, subtle disturbances that suggest movement has passed through here before. Not recent, but not entirely erased. You reach out. Your fingers trace one of the marks, gently feeling the shape beneath the surface, and it is shallow, yet distinct enough to suggest direction. You follow it with your eyes. It leads outward, fading gradually into the open land. You sit back. The pattern is clear. Movement. Always movement. You adjust your posture again. Your body faces slightly toward the direction the animals were travelling. It is not a decision yet, but a consideration. The path they follow may lead to resources, to shelter, to something beyond the immediate moment. You remain still. For now. A curious detail recorded in some oral traditions suggests that nomads often trusted the instincts of their animals during difficult conditions, allowing them to guide decisions about direction and timing. It was not blind trust, but a shared awareness of the environment. You understand? That idea now. You listen. The wind continues its steady motion. The fire crackles softly. The distant animals move with quiet purpose. Each element carries information, subtle but meaningful. You take up a slow breath. The air remains cold, but it feels familiar now, shaped by your growing awareness. You are no longer reacting to it alone. You are beginning to interpret it. You glance at your hands again. They are warmer, steadier. You bring them closer to the fire once more, not out of urgency, but to maintain the balance you have established. The flame responds. It flickers gently as light soft against the dimming sky. It does not dominate the darkness, it simply exists within it. You feel a sense of alignment, but growing. The animals continue their distant path. The wind continues its quiet song, and you sit between them learning how to belong to both. You remain seated near the fire, your body held in a careful balance between warmth and restraint. The flame continues its quiet work, steady and dependable, while the wind moves across the steppe in long unbroken currents. The distant herd has shifted further along its path, their shapes now smaller yet still visible if you look with patience. Your attention drifts, not outward this time, downward, toward the ground beneath you. You notice how the snow rests in thin layers, unevenly spread, shaped by wind and time rather than simple snowfall. In some places it is compact and firm, in others it is loose, almost powder-like, drifting slightly with each passing gust. You lean forward. Your hand reaches out again, brushing aside a small patch of snow. The surface gives way, revealing darker ground beneath, frozen yet not entirely solid. There is texture there, a complexity that the smooth white surface conceals. You pause. Water. The thought arrives slowly but clearly. A well-supported conclusion in historical research indicates that nomadic groups on the steppe relied on a variety of methods to access water during winter, often melting snow or locating partially frozen streams beneath the surface. Water was never assumed. It had to be found. You gather a small amount of snow in your hand. It feels dry, lighter than expected. You bring it closer to your face, noticing how little scent it carries. It seems pure, yet you understand that it is not always reliable on its own. Snow alone does not provide enough hydration unless it is melted. You glance at the fire. It offers a solution. You move carefully, placing a small portion of snow near the edge of the flame, not directly into it, but close enough that the heat can begin its work. The transformation is slow. The snow softens, collapses inward, turning into a thin trace of water. You watch closely. It is not much, but it is something. A lesser-known detail from ethnographic studies suggests that experienced nomads preferred to melt snow gradually rather than consume it directly, as eating snow could lower body temperature and accelerate dehydration. You begin to see the wisdom in that practice. You gather more. Small amounts, never too much at once. You place them near the fire, allowing each portion to melt before adding another. The process requires patience, but it conserves both fuel and heat. You sit back slightly. The faint sound of melting reaches you, a soft shift, barely audible yet present. It contrasts with the steady whisper of the wind, creating a subtle rhythm between warmth and cold. You bring your hands closer again. The warmth holds. You feel it move through your fingers into your palms, then slowly into your arms. Your body continues to adjust, conserving what it can, releasing what it must. You glance outward once more. The land remains vast, the horizon unchanged, yet your understanding of it continues to deepen. What once appeared empty now reveals small opportunities hidden beneath layers of frost and distance. You notice something, a slight depression in the ground not far from your position. It is subtle, almost indistinguishable from the surrounding terrain, but there is a difference in how the snow settles there. You rise slowly. Your movements remain controlled, your breath steady. You step toward the depression, your boots pressing gently into the surface. You stop at its edge. The snow here is thinner, more compact. You crouch. Your hand brushes it on the side, revealing a firmer surface beneath. You press lightly, feeling the resistance. Then just beneath that, a faint give. You pause, then press again. The surface cracks slightly, a thin layer breaking to reveal darker material below. You feel it. Cold, dense, but different. In some historical accounts, there are descriptions of nomads locating hidden water sources beneath shallow layers of ice or frozen soil, using subtle visual cues to identify where moisture might still exist. It was not always obvious. It required attention. You remain still for a moment, then you return to your fire. The discovery lingers in your mind, not as an immediate solution, but as a possibility. Water is not always visible. It is often concealed, waiting to be uncovered with care. You sit down again. The melted snow has collected into a small amount of water, barely enough to notice yet meaningful. You bring it closer, allowing it to cool slightly before you take a small sip. It is cold, but not harsh. It settles within you, a quiet relief. You take another breath. The air remains dry, yet your body feels more balanced now. The combination of warmth and water creates a sense of stability that was not present before. Some scholars have explored whether the ability to locate and manage water sources was one of the most critical survival skills for nomadic groups in winter. While opinions vary, it is clear that without water, even the best shelter and clothing would not be enough. You glance once more at the depression you found. It waits. A reminder that the land holds more than it reveals at first glance. You adjust your position again. Your body faces the fire, your back to the wind, your awareness extending outward in quiet observation. Each element around you continues to provide information subtle and constant. You listen. The wind moves. The fire breathes. The ground holds its secrets, and you remain learning to uncover them one careful moment at a time. You remain beside the fire, your body held in a careful balance between warmth and restraint, your awareness quietly expanding with each passing moment. The small amount of melted snow has eased the dryness in your throat, yet you understand that water alone is not enough. Hunger begins to appear, not sharply, gently. A subtle pull within your body, a reminder that energy must be replenished if warmth is to be maintained. You notice it in the slight heaviness of your limbs, in the way your breath feels just a bit more deliberate than before. You place your hands near the fire again. The warmth reaches them steady and familiar. You hold them there briefly, then pull them back, conserving what you have gained. Food here is not abundant. It is planned. A broadly accepted insight from historical research shows that nomadic groups prepared for winter long before it arrived, preserving meat, dairy, and other resources to sustain themselves through months when fresh supplies were limited. Survival in winter often depended on decisions made during seasons of relative abundance. You consider that. Preparation. You glance down at your surroundings. Though there is little to see, the steppe offers no immediate source of fresh food. No visible plants, no signs of easy gathering. Everything here is either hidden beneath the surface or carried with you. You reach into your clothing. Your fingers move carefully, searching for what you have kept close. A small portion of preserved food, compact and dense, wrapped securely to protect it from the cold. You bring it out. It feels firm, almost rigid, shaped by the freezing air. You hold it for a moment, allowing the heat from your hands to soften it slightly. You wait. Patience matters. Matters. A lesser-known detail from ethnographic observations suggests that many nomadic groups consumed dried or fermented foods during winter, including air, dried meat and hardened dairy products which could be stored for long periods without spoiling. These foods were not always easy to eat, but they provided essential nourishment. You bring the food closer. You take a small bite. The texture resists at first, then yields slowly, releasing a concentrated flavour that feels both rich and grounding. It is not indulgent, it is purposeful. You chew slowly, each movement deliberate. You do not rush. Energy must be used carefully even in eating. You take another bite, then pause. Your body responds not with immediate strength, but with a gradual sense of stability. The food settles within you, providing a quiet source of fuel that will support you over time. You look at the remaining portion. You do not consume it all. You wrap it again, returning it to its place, preserving it for later. You understand that consumption must be balanced with conservation. You sit back. The fire continues its steady burn, the fuel slowly breaking down, releasing heat in a consistent flow. You adjust one of the pieces slightly, ensuring that the flame remains stable. You notice the smell again. Faint. Earthy. It mixes with the air, creating a scent that feels grounding, almost reassuring in its consistency. You take a slow breath. The cold remains present. Yet your body feels more capable now, supported by the food and water you have taken in. Your awareness sharpens slightly, your senses becoming more attuned to the environment around you. An intriguing observation found in some historical accounts notes that nomadic diets during winter were often high in fat and protein, providing the necessary energy to withstand prolonged exposure to cold. These diets were not varied, but they were effective. You begin to understand why. Warmth requires fuel, not just from fire, but from within. You adjust your posture again. Your body remains compact, your limbs close, your movements minimal. You resist the urge to stretch or shift unnecessarily. Every motion has a cost, even if it feels small. You glance outward. The horizon remains unchanged, the sky still muted beneath its layer of cloud. The light continues to fade slowly, signaling the approach of deeper cold. You feel it already, a slight drop in temperature, subtle yet unmistakable. You respond. You pull your clothing closer, reinforcing the barrier holding the warmth you have gathered. You bring your hands near the fire once more, maintaining the balance you have established. Some historians have questioned how nomadic groups managed food distribution during long winters, whether strict rationing was always practiced or if decisions were made more fluidly based on immediate conditions. The details vary across cultures, but the principle remains consistent. Nothing is wasted. You look at the ground beside you. The small traces of melted snow, the packed barrier, the arrangement of fuel all remain in place. Each element contributes to your survival, each one carefully maintained. You feel a quiet sense of control. Not complete, but growing. You take another breath. The air moves through you, cold yet familiar, no longer an unfamiliar force, but a constant presence that you are learning to navigate. You sit with your fire, your your breath, sustaining yourself, one careful moment at a time. You remain beside the fire, your body steady, your breath controlled, your awareness spread quietly across the land around you. The warmth you have gathered holds for now, supported by careful movement, measured eating, and small deliberate adjustments. Yet something begins to shift. You feel it first, not in the ground, not in the fire, but in the air. The wind changes its tone. It becomes sharper, more focused, carrying a faint edge that was not present before. It does not grow louder, but it feels more direct, as if it has found a clearer path across the steppe. You lift your head slightly. The sky has darkened further, the cloud layer thickening into something more solid, more unified. The light has softened to the point where the horizon begins to blur its edges, less defined than before. You watch carefully. There is movement now, subtle but undeniable. A well-supported conclusion from historical and environmental studies suggests that winter storms on the steppe could develop with little warning, their early signs often appearing as slight changes in wind direction, cloud density, and light quality. Those who recognized these signals early had a better chance of adapting in time. You feel that moment approaching. You take a slow breath. The air feels colder now, not dramatically, but enough to register. It presses against your face with a firmer presence, slipping into small openings in your clothing with greater insistence. You adjust your coat, the layers close tighter. Your posture shifts again, aligning more directly with the direction of the wind. Your back faces it more completely now, your body forming a barrier for itself. You glance at the fire. It continues to burn, but its flame flickers more sharply, responding to the changing airflow. The small shelter you created still helps, but you can sense its limits. You look outward. The distant shapes of animals are gone now, lost within the softening horizon. The land feels emptier again, not because it has changed, but because visibility has begun to fade. You stand slowly. Your body responds with stiffness, but also with readiness. You feel the need to move not out of panic, but out of recognition. Staying here may not be enough. In some recorded accounts, there are descriptions of nomadic groups choosing to travel during the early stages of a storm rather than remain in a vulnerable position, understanding that movement, if timed correctly, could lead to better shelter or safer ground. You consider that. Movement now, or stillness here. You look toward the shallow rise that brought you to this place. It offers some protection, but not much. If the wind strengthens further, it may no longer be sufficient. You take a step, then pause. You listen. The wind continues its steady flow, but there is a faint increase in its speed, a subtle acceleration that becomes more noticeable with each passing moment. You feel it. A quiet urgency. Come on. You turn slightly, scanning the horizon for any sign of greater shelter. The land remains open, but you notice something in the distance. A darker line, low and uneven, barely visible through the shifting light. You focus on it. It could be a deeper fold in the land, or a cluster of low ground that might offer better protection. You cannot be certain, but it is something. You look back at your fire, It burns steadily, a small center of warmth that you have carefully built. Leaving it means losing that stability, at least for a time. You hesitate. A brief moment. Then you understand. The fire can be rebuilt. Your position cannot. You begin to prepare. You gather what you can. Your movements controlled, your breath steady. You do not rush. Rushing would only waste energy and increase the risk of error. You press the remaining fuel together, ensuring that the fire burns down safely, not scattering in the wind once you leave. You cover it slightly with snow, reducing its exposure, preserving what heat remains. A lesser-known observation from field studies suggests that nomads often manage their fires carefully when moving, either extinguishing them fully or preserving embers to reignite later. Fire was too valuable to abandon carelessly. You rise fully now. Your body adjusts to the shift from stillness to movement. The cold reaches you more directly, the wind brushing against your clothing with renewed force. You take a breath, then another. You step forward. The ground holds. Your pace settles into a steady rhythm, neither fast nor slow, guided by the need to conserve energy while maintaining progress. You keep your focus on the distant shape. It remains faint but consistent enough to guide you. The wind moves against you now. You lean slightly into it. Your body adapts. Each step becomes more deliberate, more controlled as you adjust to the changing conditions. The air feels sharper, the light dimmer, the space around you less defined. You continue. Your awareness remains wide, taking in the ground beneath your feet, the direction of the wind, the faint outline ahead. Everything matters. Some scholars have explored how nomadic decision-making during storms relied on a combination of experience, instinct, and environmental reading rather than fixed rules. Each situation required its own response. You feel that now. There is no single correct choice, only the best one you can make. You move forward through the growing cold, your breath steady, your steps measured, your focus clear. The step shifts around you. The wind strengthens, and you continue. You continue forward into the dimming light, your step steady, your breath controlled, your attention fixed on the faint shape ahead. The wind presses against you with greater insistence, now not violent, but firm, shaping your movement with quiet authority. You lean slightly into it. Your body responds with small adjustments, your shoulders angled, your head lowered just enough to protect your face. Each step requires a bit more effort than before, yet your pace remains consistent. You do not rush. The ground beneath you begins to change. At first, it feels the same firm with a thin layer of snow. Then gradually the texture shifts. Your foot sinks slightly deeper with each step, the surface less compact, more uneven. You pause. Your eyes drop to the ground. The snow here is softer, looser. You take another step. Your foot presses down, breaking through a thin crust, revealing a deeper layer beneath. It is not enough to trap you, but enough to slow you. You adjust your stride, shorter steps, more controlled. A widely accepted insight from environmental studies indicates that snow on the step varies greatly depending on wind patterns, temperature, and terrain, creating surfaces that can appear stable while concealing softer layers below. Understanding these variations was essential for safe movement. You begin to read it. The snow ahead shows faint ripples, small lines formed by the wind. In some areas it is smooth and firm-shaped into a hardened surface, and in others it gathers loosely, forming shallow drifts that shift under pressure. You test each step carefully. Your foot presses down, your weight transfers slowly, ensuring that the surface will hold before you move fully forward. It is a deliberate rhythm, one that requires attention but rewards caution. You feel the difference. The ground is no longer predictable. You continue. The wind carries a fine layer of snow across the surface. Small particles that move in thin streams, brushing against your boots, your clothing, your face. They do not fall from above. They travel along the ground, guided by the wind. You watch them. They reveal patterns. Where the snow moves quickly, the surface is loose. Where it slows or gathers, the ground beneath is firmer, interrupting the flow. You follow these signs. A lesser-known detail from steppe travel accounts suggests that experienced nomads could navigate winter terrain by observing how snow drifted across the ground, using its movement to identify stable paths and avoid hidden hazards. It was a form of reading the land that relied on observation rather than tools. You begin to apply that understanding. You step where the snow moves lightly. avoiding areas where it gathers too deeply. Your path becomes less direct but more efficient, guided by the subtle behavior of the surface beneath you. You move forward. Your body remains steady, your breath even, your focus clear. You glance ahead. The distant shape you're moving toward becomes slightly more defined. It appears to be a deeper depression in the land, a place where the ground dips more noticeably, offering the possibility of greater protection. You hold that direction. The wind continues to press against you, its strength gradually increasing. It carries a sharper edge. Now the air colder, the movement more persistent. You feel it along your face, along your hands. You respond. You pull your clothing tighter, sealing small openings, reducing exposure. Your posture shifts again, aligning more closely with the direction of the wind. You continue walking. The snow changes again. Your foot lands on a firmer surface, the crust holding your weight without breaking. The difference is immediate. Your movement becomes easier, more stable. You recognize it, a safer path. You follow it. Some historians have explored how nomadic groups developed an almost instinctive ability to navigate such terrain, their movement shaped by years of experience and observation. Whether learned quickly or slowly, the result was the same. They moved with awareness. You feel that awareness growing within you. You listen. The wind, the movement of snow, the sound of your steps. Each element provides information subtle but important. You continue. The ground dips slightly now, the change in elevation becoming more noticeable. The wind shifts as you descend, its force reduced just enough to confirm what you hoped. You are moving towards shelter, not complete protection, but better. You step carefully down the slope. The snow here is more stable, less affected by the wind, its surface smoother and more compact. Your footing improves, your movement becomes more confident. You pause briefly. You look back. The path you have taken is already fading, the wind smoothing over your footprints, erasing the evidence of your movement. It does not remain. Nothing does. You turn forward again. The depression ahead offers a clearer shape, now its edges visible despite the dimming light. It is not deep, but it is enough to alter the flow of wind, enough to create a space where conditions may be more manageable. You take a slow breath, then another. Your body continues to respond, adjusting to the changes around you, conserving energy, maintaining warmth. You step forward into the deeper fold of the land. The wind softens, the ground steadies, and you begin to understand the language of snow and ice, one careful step at a time. You step deeper into the fold and the wind eases just enough to change how your body feels. It still moves across the steppe with quiet persistence, but here it passes over you rather than directly through you. The difference is small, yet it matters. You pause. Your breathing slows again, settling into a steady rhythm that feels sustainable. The cold remains, but it no longer presses with the same sharp insistence as before. You've found a place that offers a brief advantage. You look around. The depression is wider than it first appeared, its edges sloping gently upward, forming a shallow basin in the land. The snow here is more evenly distributed, less disturbed by the wind, its surface smoother and more compact. You step further in. Your boots press into the ground with greater stability, each step more predictable than the last. The uneven textures you encountered earlier give way to a firmer surface. You feel it. Relief, not complete, but present. You lower yourself carefully. The ground remains cold but less exposed. You begin to shape your position again, repeating the small actions that have become familiar. You gather snow, packing it lightly along your sides, reinforcing the barrier that shields you from the wind. Your movements are calm, deliberate. The process feels more natural now, less like a task and more like a continuation of what you've already learned. A widely recognized understanding in historical research suggests that nomadic groups often adapted their shelters throughout the day and night, adjusting them as conditions changed. Shelter was not a fixed structure. It was something that evolved in response to the environment. You begin to do the same. You shape the snow more carefully this time, creating a slightly higher ridge along the side facing the wind. It is not perfect, but is enough to redirect the airflow, reducing its impact. You pause. You listen. The wind moves above you, its sound softer now, less direct. It no longer dominates your awareness. Instead, it becomes part of the background, a steady presence rather than a force pressing against you. You reach for your fire. The embers you preserved earlier have dimmed, but they still hold a faint glow beneath the surface. You uncover them, gently brushing away the thin layer of snow that protected them. They respond, a small flicker, a quiet sign of life. You add a piece of fuel, then another. You wait. The flame returns, slowly building itself with careful patience, feeding on what you have provided. It grows not quickly, but steadily reclaiming its place at the center of your small space. You feel the warmth again. It spreads outward, reaching your hands, your face, your body. It is familiar now, a presence you understand, something you know how to maintain. You sit closer. Your posture adjusts your body, aligning once more with the fire and the shape of the land. Your back faces the wind, your front remains open to the heat. You hold still. The sky continues to darken. The light fades gradually, the horizon blending into the sky, until the boundary between them becomes difficult to distinguish. The world loses its sharp edges, replaced by softer forms and deeper shadows. Night approaches. You feel it in the air. The temperature drops again more noticeably, this time the cold deepening as the last light fades. It settles into the ground, into the air, into your torn clothing. You respond. You pull your layers tighter, sealing in the warmth you have gathered. Your body remains compact, your movements minimal. You conserve. A lesser-known observation from ethnographic records notes that night on the steppe often brought the most intense cold, requiring careful management of fire clothing and energy to endure until morning. The transition from day to night was not sudden, but it carried significant consequences. You watch the fire. It burned steadily, its light flickering softly against the surrounding snow. The glow creates a small circle of visibility, a place where the world feels defined even as everything beyond it fades into darkness. You listen. The wind continues, the faint crackle of the fire, the quiet stillness of the land. Each sound becomes more distinct as the night deepens. You take a slow breath. The air feels sharper now, the cold more pronounced. Yet your body remains steady, supported by the warmth you have created and the shelter you have shaped. You feel a quiet awareness. Night is not simply darkness. It is a test. Some historians have questioned how nomadic groups structured their routines during long winter nights, whether sleep was continuous or broken into intervals of wakefulness and rest. The details vary, but the challenge was constant. You settle further. Your body lowers slightly, your posture more relaxed yet still controlled. You allow yourself to rest but not fierce fully. Not yet. You keep one part of your awareness active, listening, observing, maintaining the balance you have built. The fire continues. The wind moves above. The steppe grows quiet beneath the weight of night, and you remain holding your place within it. You remain within the shallow basin as night settles fully around you, your fire casting a soft and steady glow against the snow. The darkness does not arrive all at once. It deepens, gradually absorbing the last traces of light until the horizon disappears entirely. The world becomes smaller, defined by warmth. You sit close to the flame, your posture steady, your breathing slow and measured. The cold presses in from all directions now, no longer softened by daylight. It feels heavier, more present, as if the night itself carries weight. You adjust your position. Your back remains towards the wind, your front angled toward the fire. The arrangement feels familiar now, a pattern you've repeated enough times to trust. You listen. The wind moves above you, its tone lower, more constant. The open land carries sound differently at night, allowing it to travel farther, yet also making it feel more distant. You hear something else, faint, subtle, a shifting sound beyond the immediate circle of light. You pause. Your senses sharpen. You remain still, allowing the sound to come to you, rather than searching for it too quickly. It moves again, a quiet disturbance in the so-then stillness. You wait. In many historical interpretations of nomadic life, it is emphasized that awareness during the night was just as important as during the day, as dangers and opportunities alike could appear without warning. The ability to listen carefully often made the difference between safety and risk. You turn your head slightly. Your eyes scan the darkness, though there is little to see beyond the reach of your fire. The shadows blend together, forming shapes that shift with the flicker of light. You hear it again, closer this time, a soft crunch, then silence. You remain calm, Your breathing does not change. You understand that sudden movement would only disrupt your balance, drawing attention rather than preserving it. A lesser-known detail found in some ethnographic accounts suggests that nomadic groups often relied on subtle cues during the night to identify the presence of animals or other people, using sound and movement rather than sight as their primary guide. You listen carefully. The sound repeats, a slow, deliberate step, then another. It does not approach directly. It moves along the edge of your awareness, staying just beyond the reach of the firelight. You feel a quiet tension, not fear, awareness. You reach for a small piece of fuel and place it gently onto the fire. The flame responds, growing slightly brighter, extending the circle of light just enough to reveal more of the surrounding ground. The shadows shift. The darkness pulls back. For a moment, you see movement, a shape low to the ground passing quickly at the edge of visibility. It pauses, then continues, keeping its distance. You understand. An animal, not a threat. Not immediately. Just another presence moving through the night, guided by its own needs, its own awareness of the environment. You relax slightly. Your posture softens, though your attention remains sharp. The steppe is shared space. You're not alone here, even when it feels that way. Some researchers have explored how nomadic communities coexisted with wildlife on the steppe, often developing an understanding of animal behavior that allowed them to avoid unnecessary conflict. It was a relationship shaped by observation and respect. You watch the darkness. The movement fades. The sound disappears. You are alone again, or as close to alone as this place allows. You take a slow breath. The air feels colder now, the temperature dropping further as the night deepens. The warmth of the fire becomes more important, more central to your survival. You bring your hands closer. The heat meets them, steady, reliable. You hold them there, allowing the warmth to settle into your skin, into your muscles, into your awareness. You feel the fatigue. It arrives quietly, not as exhaustion, but as a gentle pull toward rest. Your body has worked, adapted, adjusted. It seeks stillness now. You consider it. Rest, but not fully. In some historical discussions, there is ongoing debate about how nomadic groups manage sleep during harsh winter nights, with some evidence suggesting that individuals took turns resting while others remained alert. Continuous sleep was not always possible. You understand why. You lower yourself slightly. Your posture becomes more relaxed, yet you maintain a level of awareness. Your eyes close briefly, then open again. You do not allow yourself to drift too far. The fire continues. The wind moves. The land remains. You find a rhythm. Short moments of rest, followed by quiet observation. You adjust your clothing once more, ensuring that no openings are formed, that the warmth you have gathered remains contained. You listen again. The night holds its silence. You take another breath. Slow, measured. Your body settles further, your mind becoming quieter, your awareness steady but less demanding. You feel it, a sense of belonging, not in the way of ownership, but in the way of understanding. You are part of this moment, shaped by it, responding to it, learning from it. The fire flickers softly. The shadows move gently along the snow. The wind continues its endless path across the steppe, and you remain resting within the quiet balance you have created. You remain seated within the soft circle of firelight, your body steady, your awareness cool, calm yet present. The night stretches on around you, deep and quiet, the darkness settling into every space beyond the reach of your flame. Time feels different now, slower, less defined. You shift slightly, your muscles responding with a gentle stiffness that reminds you how long you have remained in one place. You adjust your posture, careful not to disrupt the warmth you have gathered. The fire continues. Its glow remains steady, though the fuel has begun to burn down. You add another small piece, watching as the flame responds, rising briefly before settling again into a consistent rhythm. You listen. The wind moves above the basin. It sounds softer here, but still present, a constant thread running through the night. It does not fade. It does not pause. It simply continues. You glance outward. The darkness reveals little. Yet your eyes have begun to adjust. Shapes emerge slowly. Faint outlines of the land, subtle differences in tone and texture that were not visible before. You notice movement, closer this time. A small figure at the edge of the light. You remain still. The shape hesitates, then steps forward slightly, revealing more of itself. It is smaller than the animal you sensed earlier, its movements lighter, quicker. You watch carefully. It pauses again, then lowers its head, sniffing the ground, searching for something hidden beneath the snow. You understand. Even here in the depth of night, life continues its quiet search for survival. A commonly accepted interpretation in studies of nomadic life suggests that children within these communities were introduced early to the rhythms of the environment, learning through observation and participation rather than formal instruction. Survival knowledge was not taught all at once, it was absorbed over time. You think of that now, how such awareness would begin, not in safety, but in moments like this. You remain seated, observing your movements minimal, your presence calm. The small animal continues its search, digging lightly at the sand, uncovering something unseen. It finds what it needs, then moves on. You watch it disappear into the darkness, its form fading quickly beyond the reach of your fire. You take a slow breath. The air feels colder still, the temperature continuing its quiet descent. Your body responds by drawing inward, conserving warmth, maintaining the balance you have worked to achieve. You adjust your clothing again, a small movement, yet it matters. You ensure that every layer remains in place, that no gap allows the cold to slip through unnoticed. Your awareness has become precise, attentive to even the smallest changes. A lesser-known observation found in some anthropological records notes that children in nomadic cultures often develop resilience to harsh conditions at an early age, their daily lives shaped by the same challenges faced by adults. This early adaptation was not forced but natural, growing from constant exposure. You understand the importance of that now. Survival here is not a skill learned in isolation. It is a way of living. You glance at your hands. They remain warm enough, steady, responsive. You bring them near the fire again, maintaining the balance, reinforcing the warmth that supports you. The flame flickers. It responds to the small movement of air, adjusting itself without losing its strength. It has become a constant companion, something you rely on without needing to think about it. You sit quietly. Your body rests. Your mind remains aware. You feel the fatigue again, a gentle pull that encourages stillness. Your eyes close briefly, then open, your awareness returning without effort. You do not drift. Not fully. Some historians have explored how young members of nomadic groups gradually took on responsibilities during winter, learning to manage tasks such as tending fires, caring for animals, and observing the environment. These experiences shape their understanding in ways that no formal teaching could replace. You reflect on that, the quiet repetition, the gradual learning, the steady building of awareness. You shift slightly once more. Your posture remains compact, your body aligned with the fire, your back to the wind. The arrangement feels natural, now something you no longer need to think about. You listen again. The night holds its silence. The wind continues its steady motion. The fire breathes softly. You take another breath, slow, measured. The air moves through you, cold yet familiar. No longer a challenge, but a constant presence you have learned to navigate. You feel a sense of continuity, each moment connected to the next, each small action contributing to your survival. You remain within the basin, within the circle of light, within the quiet rhythm of night, learning, adapting, enduring. You remain within this basin, the fire glowing steadily beside you, your body held in a quiet balance between rest and awareness. The night has deepened, settling into a calm that feels both vast and intimate at the same time. The darkness no longer feels empty. It feels present. You sit still, your breathing slow, your senses open. The wind continues its quiet passage above its sound, familiar now, almost rhythmic, like a distant current that never stops. You listen to it, not just as noise, dear horse, but as something meaningful. Across many steppe cultures, there is a long-standing belief that the land and sky are not separate from those who move across them, but part of a shared existence where every element carries significance. The wind, the stars, the ground beneath your feet all become part of a larger understanding. You lift your gaze. The sky has changed. The clouds have begun to thin, breaking apart just enough to reveal small openings of darkness beyond them. Through those openings, faint points of light appear. Stars, dim at first, then clearer. You watch them quietly. They do not move in the way the wind does, nor do they shift like the clouds. They remain steady, distant, yet constant in a way that feels grounding. You feel a subtle shift within yourself, a sense of orientation. In some historical interpretations, nomadic groups are thought to have used the stars as guides during travel, even in winter, relying on their positions to maintain direction across vast and featureless landscapes. The exact methods vary, but the principle remains consistent. The sky offers guidance. You follow the patterns, not fully understanding them, but recognizing their presence. You sit with that awareness. The fire flickers beside you, its light warm and immediate, while the stars remain distant and cool. Together they create a balance between what is near and what is far, what is controlled and what is beyond reach. You take a slow breath. The air feels colder now, sharper yet clearer. The thinning clouds allow more of the night to settle in, bringing with it a deeper stillness. You adjust your posture slightly. Your body remains compact, your movements minimal, your warmth contained. You have learned how to hold it, how to protect it, how to sustain it over time. A lesser-known detail recorded in some cultural studies suggests that spiritual beliefs among nomadic groups often reflected their environment, with elements such as the sky wind and animals seen as part of a connected system rather than separate forces. These beliefs were not abstract, they were tied directly to daily life. You begin to understand that connection, not as an idea, but as a feeling. You glance at the fire. It continues to burn steadily, its presence reliable, its warmth consistent. You adjust a piece of fuel, ensuring that the flame remains stable. You look back to the sky. More stars have appeared now, filling the gaps left by the thinning clouds. Their light is faint yet steady, forming patterns that stretch across the darkness. You follow them with your eyes, slowly, calmly. You do not need to name them. You do not need to understand them fully. It is enough. Some scholars have explored how these celestial patterns influence not only navigation, but also storytelling, identity, and cultural memory among nomadic groups. The sky was not just a tool, it was a source of meaning. You feel that now, a quiet sense of connection. You sit still, the fire beside you, the stars above, the wind moving beyond, each element part of the same moment. You take another breath. Your body remains steady, your awareness is calm, your mind quiet. The fatigue is still present, but it no longer feels pressing. It settles into the background, allowing you to remain alert without strain. You close your eyes briefly, then open them again. The stars remain unchanged. You feel a sense of continuity. The step does not rush. The sky does not hurry. Everything moves at its own pace. You adjust your clothing once more. A small movement, yet it matters. You ensure that the warmth you have gathered remains contained, that no part of you is exposed unnecessarily. You listen again. The night holds its silence. The wind continues its steady path. The fire breathes softly beside you. You remain watching, listening, understanding a little more than before. You remain within the shallow basin. Your fire steady, your breath slow, your awareness quiet but alert. The stars above continue to hold their distant positions, faint yet constant, while the wind moves unseen across the higher ground. Then slowly something changes. At first it is almost nothing, a soft dimming of the stars. You lift your gaze. The sky, which had begun to open, now gathers itself again. Thin strands of cloud drift across the stars, blurring their light, softening their edges until they begin to fade. You watch carefully. The air feels different, heavier, more present against your skin. A broadly supported interpretation in environmental studies suggests that storms on the steppe often arrive in layers, beginning with subtle shifts in cloud cover and air density before developing into more visible and forceful conditions. You feel that layer forming now. You sit up slightly. Your posture adjusts your body, preparing without needing to rush. You have learned enough to recognize that change here rarely announces itself loudly. It builds quietly. You glance at your fire. It continues to burn, though its flame flickers more frequently, now responding to a growing movement in the air. The basin still offers protection, but the balance is shifting. You listen. The wind above you deepens in tone, its steady whisper becoming more pronounced, more continuous, as if gathering strength beyond your immediate surroundings. You feel it along your back, a firmer pressure. You respond, you adjust your position, ensuring that your body remains aligned with the direction of the wind and your back facing it fully, your front protected by the fire and the low barrier of snow. You begin to reinforce your shelter. Your hands move with quiet purpose, gathering more snow, packing it along the windward side, raising the ridge slightly higher. The cold bites at your fingers, but you work steadily, knowing that each small adjustment matters. You press the snow firmly. It holds. You shape it carefully, smoothing its surface so that the wind will pass over it rather than break against it directly. You pause, then listen again. The wind grows stronger. Not suddenly, but steadily. A lesser-known observation found in some historical travel accounts notes that experienced nomads often responded to early signs of storms by strengthening their immediate surroundings, even if they could not build a full shelter. Small changes could significantly reduce exposure. You continue. You adjust the placement of your fire, ensuring it remains low and protected, reducing the chance that the wind will scatter it. You add a small amount of fuel, enough to maintain the flame without creating a larger, more vulnerable fire. You shield it with your body. The flame responds. It steadies. You lower yourself again. Your posture becomes more compact, your movements minimal. You conserve energy, holding your warmth, maintaining your position. The sky darkens further. The stars disappear completely. The clouds thicken, forming a continuous layer that blocks what little light remains. The world beyond your immediate circle becomes indistinct, fading into a uniform darkness. Then it begins. Fine particles of snow move through the air, not falling straight down, but carried sideways by the wind. You feel them against your face, light, sharp. They strike and pass, then return, carried again by the shifting currents. You close your eyes briefly, then open them. The air fills with movement. The snow increases, still light, but persistent. You remain still. You understand that this is the beginning, not the peak. The storm is forming, building itself gradually, layer by layer. Some historians have examined accounts of steppe blizzards that describe how visibility could disappear within moments once the storm reached full strength, turning the landscape into a uniform field of white. The transition, however, often began as it does now, subtle, gradual. You draw your clothing tighter. Every opening is sealed, every layer adjusted. Your body becomes a contained space, holding warmth, resisting the cold as it presses inward. You bring your hands closer to the fire. The heat meets them, steady, controlled. You do not move too close, you do not move too far. You maintain the balance. You listen. The wind grows louder now, its tone rising, its presence more forceful. It moves across the basin, finding its way into the lower ground, pressing against your shelter with greater intensity. You feel the ridge of snow you built. It holds. For now, you remain still, focused. Your breathing remains slow, your awareness sharp, your movements minimal. There is no advantage in rushing, no benefit in panic. You respond with calm, a quiet, deliberate control. The snow continues. The wind strengthens. The world around you begins to blur its shapes, dissolving into motion and sound. And you stay within your small circle of warmth, holding your position as the storm gathers around you. You remain low within the basin as the storm strengthens your body, compact, your attention steady. The snow now moves in continuous streams, driven across the ground by the wind brushing against your clothing with a persistent whispering force. The world narrows, to warmth, to breath, to control. You keep your eyes open, though the air is filled with motion. The snow does not fall in gentle patterns. It travels sideways, circling, shifting, never settling for long. The horizon has vanished completely. You are within the storm now. You take a slow breath. The air feels colder, sharper, yet you keep your breathing steady, avoiding quick or shallow movements that would waste energy. Your body responds, holding its rhythm, maintaining its balance. You glance at the fire. It burns lower now, its flame smaller, more protected, but still alive. You add a small piece of fuel, shielding the flame with your body as you do. It responds, a brief flicker, then steadiness again. You feel it, warmth, still present, still reliable. You lean slightly closer, allowing the heat to reach you, careful not to disturb the balance you have created. The wind presses harder now. now, it moves into the basin with greater force, testing the ridge of snow you built. You hear it, a low, continuous sound rising and falling as the currents shift. You listen carefully. The ridge holds, but not without effort. You reach out. Your hand presses against the packed snow, reinforcing it, smoothing its surface, ensuring that it remains strong enough to redirect the wind. Your fingers feel the cold sharply. You withdraw them. You bring them back toward the fire, restoring warmth, maintaining movement. A widely accepted interpretation from historical records suggests that injury and illness during winter on the steppe could become serious quickly as cold conditions slowed healing and limited access to care. Even small problems required attention. You understand that. You flex your fingers. You move them slowly, ensuring they remain responsive. You do the same with your toes, shifting them within your boots, maintaining circulation. You check your body quietly, carefully. Everything must continue to function. You sit still again. The storm grows. The snow thickens. The wind intensifies. The sound surrounding you becomes more constant, more immersive. It no longer comes in waves. It is continuous. You feel a moment of strain, a small tightening in your chest. You notice it. You respond. You slow your breathing further, deep and controlled, allowing your body to settle, to release unnecessary tension. You remain calm. A lesser-known observation from some field studies notes that maintaining composure during extreme weather was considered as important as physical preparation, as panic could lead to poor decisions and wasted energy. You understand that now. You hold your position. The fire continues to burn, though it demands more attention now. You adjust the fuel carefully, ensuring that it remains steady without becoming too large. You shield it again. The flame flickers, then steadies. You feel the warmth reach you once more. It is enough. You listen. The storm continues its relentless movement. Yet within your small space there is a fragile stability. The basin, the ridge, the fire, your clothing, your posture all work together. You hold that system. You maintain it. Some historians have explored how nomadic groups managed periods of illness or injury during winter, often relying on the collective knowledge of the group and the careful management of resources. Alone the challenge is greater. You feel that truth. You are responsible for each decision, each movement, each moment. You adjust your clothing again, a small shift, ensuring that no part of you is exposed, that the warmth remains contained. You bring your hands close to the fire. The heat meets them, steady, reliable. You hold them there, then pull them back, conserving the warmth within your layers. You listen again. The storm shows no sign of stopping. Not yet. You accept that. You do not resist it. You work within it. You take another slow breath. The air moves through you, cold yet controlled, your body maintaining its balance. You remain still, focused. The wind continues. The snow moves without pause. The fire holds, and you endure one careful moment at a time. You remain within your small circle of warmth as the storm continues to move across the steppe, its force steady, its presence unbroken. The snow flows around you in shifting patterns, the wind shaping it into streams that pass and return without pause. Time stretches. It becomes something you feel rather than measure. You sit close to the fire, your posture steady, your breathing slow, your awareness focused on maintaining the balance you have created. Each element around you continues to demand attention, yet none of it feels unfamiliar anymore. You have learned. You listen. The storm carries a rhythm now, a pattern within its movement. The wind rises slightly, then eases, then rises again. The snow thickens, then thins, then returns. It is not random. It follows a sequence that you begin to recognize. You feel it. A subtle shift, not a change in direction, but a change in intensity. A broadly supported conclusion from historical geography suggests that nomadic routes across the steppe often followed patterns shaped by terrain, seasonal movement, and environmental conditions, even during winter. These paths were not marked, but they were known. You think of that now, the idea of movement across this landscape, not just in moments like this, but over time, across distance. You glance outward. The storm has reduced visibility to almost nothing, yet you imagine the lines that connect one place to another. Routes shaped by experience, by memory, by necessity. You understand. Movement is not only about leaving danger, it is about knowing where to go. You adjust the fire again. The flame remains small but steady, its warmth consistent, its light soft against the surrounding snow. You add a small piece of fuel, maintaining the balance without overextending your resources. You sit back, the warmth holds. You feel it move through you, steady and controlled, supporting your body as the storm continues around you. A lesser-known observation from some historical records notes that nomadic groups maintained knowledge of distant locations even in winter, including trade routes that connected regions across vast distances. These routes were not always used in the harshest conditions, but they remained part of the larger understanding of the land. You consider that. The idea of connection, even here, even now. You are part of a place that extends far beyond what you can see. You take a slow breath. The air feels cold but familiar, shaped by your awareness, guided by your control. You are no longer reacting to each change. You are working with them. You listen again. The storm continues, but something within it feels slightly different. The wind still moves strongly, but there are brief moments where its force lessens, where the sound softens just enough to be noticed. You recognize it. A variation, not an end, but a change. Some scholars have examined whether experienced nomads could detect the early signs of a storm weakening, identifying subtle shifts in wind patterns and snowfall that indicated a gradual transition. The evidence is not always consistent, but the idea remains compelling. You feel that possibility now. You remain still. You do not act on it yet. You wait. You observe. You maintain your position, ensuring that your shelter holds, that your fire continues, that your body remains balanced. You adjust your clothing once more, a small movement, ensuring that the warmth you have gathered remains contained. You bring your hands closer to the fire again. The heat meets them, steady, reliable. You hold them there briefly, then pull them back, conserving the warmth within your layers. You listen. The storm continues its rhythm, yet the intervals between its stronger movements seem to lengthen slightly. The snow still moves, but with brief pauses, moments where the air feels less crowded, less dense. You feel it, a quiet shift. You remain calm. You do not assume. You continue to observe. You glance outward again. The darkness remains, the visibility limited, yet there is a faint sense that the intensity has eased, if only slightly. You take another breath, slow, measured. Your body remains steady, your awareness clear, your position secure. You sit with the storm, not resisting it, not rushing to escape it, but understanding it, learning its rhythm, waiting for its change. You remain within the basin, your body steady, your awareness quiet and attentive as the storm begins to change around you. The wind still moves across the land, yet its force no longer presses with the same insistence. The snow continues to drift, but in softer patterns, less dense, less constant. You notice it, a gradual easing, not sudden, but real. You lift your head slightly. The air feels different against your face. Still cold, still sharp, yet less heavy, as if the weight within it has begun to lift. The sound of the wind shifts as well, its tone lowering, its rhythm becoming less continuous. You listen carefully. There are pauses now. Small ones, moments where the movement slows just enough for you to feel the absence of pressure. You take a slow breath. The air enters more easily, less force pushing against you. Your body responds, releasing a small amount of tension that had built during the height of the storm. You remain still. You do not rush to move. You understand that change on the step is rarely immediate. It unfolds in stages, each one requiring observation before action. A well-grounded interpretation from environmental history suggests that the end of winter storms on the steppe often arrives gradually, with subtle reductions in wind intensity and snowfall before conditions improve more noticeably. Recognizing these stages was essential for safe decision-making. You continue to observe. The snow still moves across the ground, but its flow is lighter, more scattered. The dense streams that once filled the air have thinned, leaving behind a clearer sense of space. You glance upward. The sky remains hidden, but there are faint variations in the darkness, slight differences in tone that suggest the clouds above are beginning to break. You feel it, a quiet transition. You adjust your position slightly. Your body remains compact, your warmth contained, but your posture shifts just enough to prepare for movement when the time is right. You bring your hands closer to the fire again. The warmth meets them, steady, reliable. You hold them, there briefly, then pull them back, maintaining the balance you have established. A lesser-known detail from some nomadic traditions suggests that experienced travellers often waited for clear signs of stability before moving after a storm, ensuring that conditions had truly improved rather than acting on the first signs of change. You follow that approach. You wait. You listen. The wind continues to ease. The pauses grow longer. The air feels lighter. You notice something else. A faint brightness. Not strong, but present. It appears at the edge of your vision, a subtle shift in the darkness that suggests the return of light beyond the cloud cover. You lift your gaze. The sky begins to reveal itself against small openings forming where the clouds have thinned. Through them, a faint glow emerges, soft and distant, yet unmistakable. You watch it, the first sign of returning light. Some historians have reflected on how the gradual return of light after long winter storms carried both practical and symbolic importance for nomadic groups, marking not only a change in conditions, but also a renewal of movement and activity. You feel that significance now, not as an idea, but as a presence. You take a slow breath. Your body feels steadier, your energy more balanced, your awareness clear. The storm has not disappeared entirely, but it has shifted enough to allow you to consider your next step. You glance outward. The shape of the land begins to return, faint outlines emerging through the thinning snow. The basin that sheltered you becomes more defined, its edges visible once more. You look at your surroundings. The ridge you built still holds. The fire continues to burn. Your position remains secure. You consider moving. Not yet, but soon. A thoughtful discussion among some researchers suggests that the timing of movement after a storm was one of the most critical decisions nomads faced, as leaving too early could expose them to lingering danger, while waiting too long could limit opportunities. You hold that balance. You wait for certainty. You observe the wind. You feel the air. You watch the light. Each element provides information guiding your decision without the need for urgency. You sit quietly, the fire beside you, the storm fading around you. The light returning above. You feel a sense of transition. The hardest moment has passed. The next one approaches. You remain calm, prepared, ready to move when the land allows it. You remain seated within the basin as the storm continues to loosen its grip on the land, your fire still burning beside you, your body steady, your awareness calm. The air feels clearer now, the weight within it reduced, the movement of snow softened into something gentler. You lift your gaze, the sky opens further. Faint light spreads across it, not bright, but enough to reveal shape and distance once more. The horizon begins to return slowly, its line emerging from the fading storm. You watch quietly. The change is gradual. It feels earned. You take a slow breath. The air enters your lungs with less resistance. Its sharpness softened, its presence more balanced. Your body responds, releasing tension you did not fully notice before. You sit for a moment longer, not from hesitation, but from understanding. A commonly supported interpretation among historians suggests that survival on the steppe was not defined by the dramatic victories, but by the accumulation of small, consistent actions that allowed individuals to endure over time. There was no single moment of success, only continuation. You look around your space. The ridge of snow you built remains in place, shaped by your hands and reinforced by your awareness. The fire continues to burn, its warmth steady, its presence constant. You reach toward it. Your hands feel the heat. Familiar, reliable. You hold them there briefly, then pull them back, conserving what you have gathered. You glance outward again. The land stretches before you, visible once more, its vastness unmanged, its quiet presence steady. The storm has passed, but the steppe remains as it always has been. Open! Demanding. You begin to prepare. Your movements are slow, deliberate, guided by the same care that has carried you through the night. You adjust your clothing, ensuring that every layer remains secure, that your warmth is held within. You check your footing. The ground has changed slightly. The snow reshaped by the storm, its surface smoother in some places, deeper in others. You press your foot down gently, testing its stability. It holds. You stand. Your body rises with quiet effort, stiffness easing as you shift your weight. You pause briefly, allowing yourself to adjust to regain balance. Then you take a step. The ground responds. Firm enough. You take another. Your pace begins to settle, steady and controlled, guided by the awareness you have built. You move carefully, reading the surface, observing the wind, feeling the air. You continue. A lesser-known reflection found in some cultural studies suggests that surviving harsh winters on the steppe shaped not only practical skills, but also identity, creating a sense of resilience and continuity that defined nomadic life. You feel that within you now, not as a concept, but as a quiet truth. You glance back once. The basin that sheltered you remains behind its shape, still visible, its presence, a reminder of the place where you endured. You do not linger. You turn forward again. The steppe stretches ahead, endless, open. You walk, your breath steady, your body balanced, your awareness wide. You are no longer uncertain. You understand the rhythm now. Movement, observation, adjustment, endurance. Each step follows the next, not rushed, not delayed, but placed with intention. The land does not guide you with clear paths. It offers subtle signs, quiet patterns that reveal themselves over time. You follow them. The wind moves gently now, no longer pressing, but present a constant companion across the open space below. The light continues to grow, revealing more of the land with each passing moment. You feel it, a quiet sense of continuation. The storm has passed, but the journey does not end. You walk on, and as you move, the world around you softens. The light spreads evenly across the snow. The wind settles into a calm rhythm. The land becomes less demanding, though never easy. You take a slow breath. The air feels clearer now, less sharp, more balanced. Your body responds with ease, your movements becoming more fluid. You continue, and gradually the intensity of the moment begins to fade. The urgency softens. The awareness remains, but it no longer demands constant focus. You allow yourself to relax slightly. Your steps remain steady, but your mind begins to quiet. The vastness of the steppe stretches around you, no longer overwhelming but familiar. You walk within it, part of it. The rhythm of your breath aligns with the rhythm of your steps, each one calm, each one measured, each one leading you forward without effort. The wind whispers softly. The light rests gently across the land. The cold remains, but it no longer feels harsh. It simply is. You take another breath, slow, deep. The world feels still, not empty, but complete. And as you continue across the open steppe, your awareness softens, your thoughts quiet, your body at ease within the rhythm you have found. You walk on, unhurried, steady, calm. The journey continues, and you are ready for it. Now you let your breath slow just a little more, allowing the steady rhythm of your steps to soften into stillness, as if the land itself is gently guiding you into rest. The wide horizon stretches quietly around you, no longer demanding attention, but offering space for your thoughts to drift. You feel the cold air move gently across your face, no longer sharp but calm and even, like a quiet presence that asks nothing of you. The light remains soft, resting across the snow, creating a landscape that feels distant and peaceful. You take a slow breath, then another. Your body relaxes, your shoulders lower, your hands feel warm. The wind continues its gentle movement, a soft and steady sound that blends into the background, carrying no urgency, only rhythm. The steppe stretches endlessly, yet it no longer feels vast or overwhelming. It feels quiet. You imagine yourself walking slowly, each step lighter than before, your path no longer shaped by survival, but by calm movement through open space. The land holds you gently now, allowing you to move without effort. Your breath slows further. Your thoughts begin to drift. The fire, the storm, the cold all become distant memories, fading softly into the background as the present moment settles into stillness. You remain calm, balanced, at ease, and as the quiet of the steppe surrounds you, you allow yourself to rest within it, carried gently by the rhythm you have learned, guided by the steady presence of the land. Sleep well,